Just like you and I, roller coasters too have a lifespan. Some last longer than others, and some are gone way too soon. So here are the top 10 roller coasters in America that were removed way too soon and now are some of the most missed rides out there. Number 10, Hypersonic SLC, located at Kings Dominion. While not the most enjoyable roller coaster out there, Hypersonic was unlike anything else we've ever seen before in the roller coaster game. Was anyone else able to ride this S&S thrust air coaster? Because I'm not gonna lie, I was very intimidated by that launch. I mean, it's 0 to 80 in just 1.8 seconds, so who wouldn't be intimidated? Now, I might be an outcast when I say this, but I actually enjoyed Hypersonic. And a really cool fact about Hypersonic is that when it was built in 2001, it gave Kings Dominion the title for the park with the most roller coasters that offered a launch. While sadly only operating from 2001 through 2007, Hypersonic offered horrible capacity and was a maintenance nightmare for the park. Now, since there are so many awesome roller coasters that are no longer around anymore, I wanted to include a bonus roller coaster that was actually located at 2 different parks, and that would be Firehawk Kings Island, but first opened up as X-Flight at Six Flags Worlds of Adventure in 2001. While giving riders less than 20 years to ride this Vekoma Flying Dutchman, known as Firehawk or X-Flight, it's sad that this roller coaster only lasted around 20 years, and this Flying Dutchman offered a great ride. This layout was actually so much better than its older sibling Nighthawk down at Carowinds, and in my opinion, they should have torn down Nighthawk instead of Firehawk. Which also has me wondering, if Firehawk was located somewhere else at Kings Island, would it still be in operation today? Does anyone else think about that? Because Kings Island, in my opinion, made a very non-creative move when it came to Orion's placement. Because it's clear the park has plenty of room to build a Giga and keep Firehawk in operation. But back to the ride, I mainly rode this when it was located in Northeast Ohio, and I remember buying a dark blue X-Flight logo t-shirt, and I wore it all the time and everywhere. I thought it was one of the coolest coasters at that time. And again, I really loved everything about this coaster, and it's a shame that we cannot ride it anymore. Defunct coasters are an interesting thing because there are multiple factors that go into a park making the decision to remove a coaster. Is it a cost savings measure? Has the ride really reached the end of its lifespan? Or could it be that the coaster had manufacturer issues? Or better yet, does the park have bigger plans for that plot of land? And that last reason is why this next roller coaster was removed. Number 9, Thunder Road, located at Carowinds. Now, while I totally understand the reason why Carowinds decided to remove their 93-foot tall racing wooden coaster, I know I'm not the only one who misses it. Just like the Racer and Racer 75 at Kings Dominion, Thunder Road offered a great out and back style layout with some great pops of floating airtime. While I really did enjoy Thunder Road, Carolina Harbor really benefited by doubling the size of the water park. Opening in 1976, this wooden coaster built by the legendary Philadelphia Toboggan Coaster Company has thrilled riders for just under 40 years. And now Carowinds is left with just one major wooden coaster, and that is Hurler, which really isn't even worth the ride. And believe it or not, but the Woodstock Express sitting in the very back row is the best wooden coaster at Carowinds because you get really good airtime going down the drops. Now, the reason why I did not include Top Thrill Dragster on this top 10 is because we don't know what the future holds for the actual layout, and all we know, it could be pretty much the same exact ride, but with a different launch. So in some capacity, Top Thrill Dragster is now defunct, but it's still going to be remodified in some way. So that's why I did not include it on this top 10. However, if Top Thrill Dragster was removed or completely different when it reopens, then it would definitely be the number 1 coaster on this list. Number 8, Vortex, located at Kings Island. It's clear that Cedar Fair messed up and removed the wrong Vortex, because instead of removing the world's second B&M stand-up, which is located at Carowinds and offers one of the least enjoyable rides out there, Cedar Fair opted to remove the world's first roller coaster to flip riders upside down 6 different times. Now I get it, there might have been some mechanical issues with Vortex, but it's still depressing to walk down Coney Mall and not see the 148-foot tall aero coaster dominating the area. Does anyone else miss hearing the clicks of the anti-rollback as a train made its way up the lift hill, because you could hear it all around that area. Now, Vortex might not have been a great coaster in general, but it was a huge deal for Kings Island and the coaster industry. Since I grew up 45 minutes north of Kings Island in Dayton, Ohio, you would hear everyone talk about Vortex for decades. Even when I worked at the park in 2004 and 5, Vortex was the most popular steel coaster in the park. We are only traveling 1,500 feet to the next coaster on this top 10. Number 7, Son of Beast, located at Kings Island. Now some might question why this is not ranked higher, and I get it, but here's the thing. Son of Beast was extremely rough and offered a layout that wasn't too enjoyable. Kings Island, owned by Paramount at the time, defied all odds when they announced they were building the world's first hyper wooden roller coaster, a ride that was also the first one to feature an inversion. And another crazy stat about Son of Beast was the length. That's because this wooden roller coaster featured a track length of just over 7,000 feet long. If only Son of Beast offered wood coaster trains instead of the steel coaster trains when it first opened, because who knows, we might have had this become an RMC hybrid coaster before Cedar Fair decided to convert Mean Streak up north. Number 6, Wicked Twister, located at Cedar Point. After only operating from 2002 through 2021, this intimate impulse coaster really, in my opinion, should still be in operation. Maybe just not at Cedar Point. Now don't get me wrong, because I really do love what Cedar Point is doing with the new boardwalk area of the park, and in my opinion, it's much needed for Cedar Point. However, Wicked Twister could have been easily relocated to a few other parks in the chain, or maybe even sold off overseas somewhere. Now I do get that the 216-foot tall impulse coaster requires a ton of energy every time it launches, and not every park has a strong enough grid for that. Honestly, I just loved Wicked Twister. This coaster was so much fun, especially if you're riding the very front row or the very back. Not to mention, but the visuals were fantastic with the lake off to your left and the park off to your right. Wicked Twister, you really are missed, and I know I'm not the only one who feels that way. Now it's time for the top 5 roller coasters here in America that are now defunct, which also means that this list is getting very difficult for me because I have been lucky enough to have ridden every roller coaster on this top 10, and these 5 are the ones I really enjoyed. Number 5, The Villain, located at Six Flags Worlds of Adventure. Now this is a roller coaster that went under the knife way too soon. Custom Coasters International really designed us a beautiful double out and back wooden coaster. A ride that gave us great airtime, amazing laterals, massive drops, and offered excellent pacing. It's a damn shame that Cedar Fair did not relocate the Villain, especially since the supports of the 108-foot tall coaster were all made out of steel. So I would imagine that this ride would have been much easier to relocate due to that alone. But instead, the 3,980-foot long wooden roller coaster was sold to a local scrap dealer for $30,000. I have ridden Villain dozens of times, and it really was one of my favorite wooden coasters still to this day, especially when you're riding on it at night. Number 4, Big Bad Wolf, located at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. And this was one of the 10 suspended coasters designed by Aerodynamics, and Big Bad Wolf was by far the best one here in America. It really is amazing that Aero can design a layout like the one Big Bad Wolf offered, and then the same year designed the layout for Accelerate at Six Flags Astroworld, which offered one of the most boring looking layouts to date. Big Bad Wolf was not only fun, but also offered a ride experience that most coasters can't give us, a fast-paced trip through the woods. And luckily back then, Busch Gardens Williamsburg focused on theming around the rides and added building facades all throughout the first half of Big Bad Wolf, which resulted in some amazing near misses. And you cannot thank Aero enough for the second drop over the Rhine River. This drop alone and the turns that followed were just absolutely amazing. Honestly, the experience is hard to describe. Number 3, Batman and Robin the Chiller, located at Six Flags Great Adventure. I first rode these dueling coasters back in 2005 and loved everything about them. I particularly liked Batman more than Robin simply due to the inside top hat element. But the element that I wish that all of you had the opportunity to experience would have to be the zero-G roll. Both sides offer this insane inversion and it was just so wow. The way the train traveled so fast through them was really something, but that wasn't the best part, because once the train stalled at the tallest point of the ride, it then traveled in reverse throughout the layout. So you got to experience the zero-G roll forwards and then backwards. If Batman and Robin the Chiller was still located at Great Adventure, I guarantee you it'll be a top 3 coaster at the park for you. If you are planning a trip to a park this year, and I know you are, you have to check out themeparkmerch.com for some really cool coaster merch that is extremely comfortable and affordable. And I designed every design myself, and I greatly appreciate all the support. Number 2, Dueling Dragons, located at Islands of Adventure. While I will admit Hagrid's is a very worthy replacement for Ice Dragon, I will say I do not feel the same about that when it comes to Fire Dragon. That's because this was one of the most intense inverted coasters out there, and B&M knocked it out of the park with this layout. The first drop in the back seat on the left side was just wow. The first Immelman was always intense, and then the airtime hill offered a surreal feeling on an inverted coaster. But I really do appreciate the last corkscrew that Fire Dragon offered. This was located right above the water and was executed at such an insane speed. Overall, Dueling Dragons was one of the most unique roller coasters ever built. And now, it's time for the number 1 defunct coaster that I've ridden. And we are heading up to Cedar Point for this, and that is number 1, Mean Streak. Now I know I got some of you with that one because you probably did believe me. But the number 1 roller coaster that I've ridden that is no longer around would have to be Volcano The Blast Coaster, located at Kings Dominion. And I have to say, my last ride on this, I had a rollback in the front row. It was the best coaster experience I've ever had in my life because the train that we were on literally stopped upside down in the first inversion just outside of the volcano. And then you traveled in reverse. It was just wild, and again, an experience that I will never ever forget. But Intamin really delivered with this suspended catapult coaster. And I'm going to give a shout out to Paramount as well because they also delivered to Kings Dominion when they added this extreme thrill ride in 1998. Not only did this coaster launch you, but it launched you twice and out of a 150-foot tall volcano. And then when you add in the fire effects, the 3 Heartline rolls, and the drop into the brake run, and by the way, I don't think that drop gets talked about enough. Volcano is a roller coaster that very well would be in my top 20 right now if it was still in operation. That is how epic this Intamin coaster was. But just like anything in life, things change and new things come. And now, instead of standing in lines for these rides, we get to watch YouTube videos of how awesome these coasters once were. So what are some of your favorite roller coasters that are no longer here? Be sure to let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to smile today, think positive, and keep riding coasters.